now I can, be recorded because I was muted, even I was recording myself. Okay, so thank you everybody joining. Today is May 21st. This is our 12th Agentics Foundation meetup here in Novi Sad, in person and recorded and shared online over Zoom. What we are doing here, we are doing Agentics Foundation meetup where we share how we approach agentic engineering and agentic quality engineering in working on different applications. And for our purposes, we started a couple of meetups ago working on an application, community social network, MVP, for the Serbian Agentics Foundation and StartIt community, as this was project selected by the community. Everything was done using Claude as the coding agent, Claude Flow in the beginning, and now RuFlow after renaming, for orchestrating agents for research, planning, development, and we still didn't get to CI/CD. So we use those agents for development. Let me check which version I'm running right now, as I needed to rebuild my complete Docker desktop DevPod environment. Okay, this looks like almost the latest one. So I'm using Claude. Let me give you which version I'm running of the Claude. Right now, 2.1.146. That should be the recent one from today. Latest version of RuFlow. And my Agentic UI fleet with latest version, I hopefully... Oh, yeah, wrong switch. Missing dash. Yeah, 3.10.0. So yeah, the latest version installed. So we are ready to dive in. I cannot continue with the previous session because I needed to rebuild the whole environment. So we will need now to direct agents to build us again both backend and frontend. I want to test this app. Start backend, frontend, this DevPod workspace should have Docker in Docker. So make sure to use it to run services. I wanted to run with Docker if the Docker setup last time. So also a good thing, I planned last time to rebuild my container because Docker was exposed. So let me check now if the Docker is still exposed as I was rebuilding this. So give me a second to check. Okay, yeah, this is not exposed anymore. So we removed that access to my local Docker on my machine. So this is running now as a safe environment, DevPod, Docker, desktop, and then Visual Studio Code server running on those. So, okay, let's see. As for those that are first time here, and I have, admit, somebody wants to join. Hello, Theodora, welcome. Let's see if somebody else will join later. But there will be a need now to do some modifications to the existing setup because previous run of Docker was trying to access my local Docker. So, let's see if now this will know how to, let me hide. Okay, this is how to hide. While this one is trying to prepare, when we were finishing last session, I started QE browser skill because we couldn't log into the app. So, those that were previous time here, we started, back in front end, even though agent said, we are done, everything is implemented. First time starting the application, we couldn't log in. So then I used like a skill and gave it a command. Now use QE browser with Vibium for running the tests in the headless browser to look at all the screens and fix the bugs as you are going through the user journey of this application. So you need to be able to log in into the application and do the basic stuff in the application. And we started talking. 15 minutes later, it managed to log in and to fix a couple of bugs that it found. Like it reported, it fixed like 4 or 5 bugs that time. But let's see what it really did since that time. So while this one is doing, I will ask it in another session. This DSP, for those that are here first time, is alias that I use to initialize Claude with dangerous skip permission mode. In order not to type every time, I just go and edit bash rc and add, alias DSP or whatever you want. It was logical for me. That will, I don't need to type each time this long command. So yeah, and let's invoke the new session. While this one is setting up, the Docker is starting the application. I'm interested to see where is that report from the last time? I just lost it. It looks like I closed it. This was the original implementation plan, but there was that QE report. Let me just try to find that one. There they are. I think this was, we ran this last time. So this was, last month when the last meetup was. I run a couple of specialized QE agents on the code base to see if there are problems, even though agents said that they were done. And it found, couple of, let's say, critical and major problems. Security definitely has some problems. Test coverage was not good enough. So they are failing. What, we can go into rubrics and how, it can report to these things, but, we get like an overview and the distribution of what problems should be fixed before, we deploy this somewhere, even for alpha testing. So before we release this from the dev environment, let's call it like that, into somebody else's hand, I wouldn't give this to a tester in this shape. But I can run specialized agents to see what is the status right now of my project and is it ready, to be handed out further during the pipeline. Okay. As I see a couple of new faces here, maybe you have some questions to ask while this system is still working on starting the application and fixing the problems that it finds, because it needs to set up now Docker in this DevPod for the first time.
There's one question on the security score that you got. Is that just based from scanning the code, or do you actually build the code and scan endpoints as well?
So this was done only by looking at the code. Yes. And this is the master report. Let me just try to find. So each of the agents, you were, yesterday in Belgrade, so you can saw on the yesterday's meetup, each of the agents produce its own report. So in this case, QE security auditor agent produces this report related, but based on the code. Whole Claude is initialized in the project, has access to the code base, and it will use the code to find these kind of problems. And I really like this risk matrix that you can get, what is a high impact and high criticality and likelihood. So, those are the bugs that probably should be fixed first. And it's using OWASP defined rules to look for, not only for CVEs, but for, in this case, CVSS and other types of vulnerabilities based on the OWASP top 10. Yeah. So this was the security audit from the last time. Let's see, there was a number of those, like a performance one. Let me, see this one. Again, this kind of reports, if you run them, and give to the developers, they can surface some of the information that even the engineers with a lot of years of experience couldn't find, because Claude can take a look, through multiple files as it's doing the investigation following possible, code smells for the bottlenecks, based on, again, the data that it was trained on. So if, the performance or security issues were surfaced sometimes in the history, then the agent will probably be able to find them. Novel things are still problematic. Maybe, some new models that are kept hidden still from us, like Mythos, have some novel ways of finding security and other types of problems that, surpass our capabilities. That's probably why they're keeping it like that. Okay, startup Docker daemon. It's still working, generating config, okay, blah, blah, blah. It will take some time. So I wanted to do this, but I had a guest here, so I didn't spend enough time on building the container before. But it's not, every day that you get a guest from the UK. Okay, for instance, okay, Docker fix reinstall Docker from official. What? Yes. It's not only code. It's not vanilla code. So, for those, for those that you're first here, with the initialization of agentic QA fleet and Rooflow, you get the collection of agents. So this, on the .cloud top level agents, these for analysis architecture, these are like Rooflow agents. So these are let's say, set of agents that I use for planning, coding, and researchers, mostly used for those. And for, doing more planning, this code goal-oriented planner. And for testing, there is a set of specialized QE agents. That's my open source project, Agentic QE Fleet, for those that are first time here. Agentic. This is the framework that I created for agentic quality engineering. It has a framework and the fleet. And the fleet is a combo of agents, skills, and some fancy engine running below, both CLI and MCP servers available with a lot of capabilities that are standard. Vendor software testing tools are still far away of producing. So yeah, let's see what this system learned. Oh, nothing. We didn't tested anything. This is completely, maybe, let's see if it remembered something from our previous session. This should be saved. Let me just see. There are experiences. Looks like the old system is still there. So as we were working in the previous sessions, QE agents are capturing experiences. Later, based on these experiences, they will learn some patterns. Not here. This is not the latest version. I need to initialize the latest version. Yeah. Okay, here are patterns, but there should be a newer database. So patterns are learned with a certain confidence. As your agents are reusing some of the patterns they are learned, then the usage number will increase. In these projects, I don't have that much usage, as we didn't run that much agents. We ran them once last time in the last session. I will run them later so we can see the number of usage increasing for certain patterns if they are reused. By reusing successfully certain pattern, that confidence will be increased. And I can show in my native project where I'm doing development, it's better to show there, while this one is still building the Docker. Let me see. So while this one is working, let me show you my working environment. That one has a lot of learned stuff. So, and why the agents, they will learn successful patterns and reuse them more. And those that are not successful will be penalized. So they will not be used next time when they try to do the same task. Having patterns with the high confidence enables these agents to use less LLM when needed for reasoning. In that way, you are getting more confidence and more deterministic outputs from the agents, because LLM is the most probabilistic or problematic in the equation, because the results that LLM does produce are probabilistic. And if you give them the same prompt twice, you'll probably not get the same result, every time we run the same prompt. So let me show you how the memory, or what my agents learned in my system. This is my dev environment for the Agentic QE fleet, and it has a lot of stuff learned. Let's see if my Mac will behave there.
You run each of your different projects in different containers, so isolated from it. Okay.
Yeah. Only if so for some projects, depending for Agentics Foundation organization, they have a multiple projects. There, I create a one workspace where I put multiple repos. And then in one workspace, I have possibility to access multiple repos at the same time. In some projects, there is a meta repo system where you have one meta repo and then you have submodules, or you can add even a sim links to external repositoriums that you have locally or on some other machine over Tailscale, or depending how you want to control where the data is being stored. But you can combine multiple repos if you want to use the information from them across the projects as you're working. But each of those projects should have initialization all locally on project level, and you have a global level tools that you're installed. So you always need to think what is on the global level and what is running on the local project level. So a lot of experiences collected, so almost 20,000 experiences on this. What is I have a specific system. I'm running on some patterns. I'm running consolidation, so dream insights or dream cycles that will do consolidation of the patterns, looking for patterns and similarities between. So finding the concept that they will process, if they will be able to find some association and novelty insights related to something, and that in the end will create a specific dream insights that again increase confidence in certain patterns that the agent learned. So it's really a lot of moving parts running below. There are for the things that you need agents to plan upfront, there are goal-oriented action planning. That's something from military practice. You need to have a goal defined. You need to have assess of the current state. You need to have plan state. You need to have a delta and how to reach the end goal. So goal-oriented action planning. Then, okay, key value store for the actions that agents are doing as they are doing. I'm, doing vectorization of certain things. Mean cut, I mean, I don't want to even go there. So patterns, this system learned more patterns than the previous as I'm using it more, but I wanted to show you this. So confidence, as patterns are being reused and successfully being reused for certain tasks, the confidence will increase. So for starting 0.5, each pattern will be saved as 0.5 starting value. Then as you reuse them, you get increased confidence in that pattern. So for instance, some were used with a high successful rate, some not that successful rate. So their confidence didn't grow that much because the success of the task working were not good enough. So a lot of specialized Sona patterns and witness chain. So everything agents are doing is saved and cryptographically can be traced. So complete witness chain of all the decisions, which agent did it, why did it, with the SEH hash algorithm to prevent it from modifying.
Do you use that to improve agent behavior?
Yes, and in the last week, I was pushed by one contributor from Spain, Jordi. He was really trying to make my self-learning system, self-improving system work on his project, and he was finding some bugs, and he was pushing the bugs. As he was pushing the bugs, I was fixing them, and we got. I will share now his feedback. Just let me see what this one is still. Okay, bring up Docker. Almost there. we will get to application start in a half an hour. So this is the most painful part. When it needs to start application for the first part, because it will it needs to install the missing dependencies and things, and it error out multiple times. So this was really fun for me. Or not. Sorry, not fun. This was like a proud moment for me. Where, okay, this was like the last feature request that he asked for the 3.10. I created 3.10 release out of this one. So he wanted also to end possibility, because I already use like a local embedder for this vectorization, but most of guys from Agentics Foundation, like me, use my fleet, Agentic fleet, with RuFlow or RuVector combination. So he wanted to have possibility to export or use the external embedders in combination with my fleet. Okay, he gave his suggestion. I did the implementation, created, of course, like for any new features, I need to create ADR first, to define the architecture of the feature before doing the implementation. That's really improving how the agents behave. So using the DDD or domain-driven design for development and having architectural decision records to provide insights into for agents about why some architectural decision was made, keeps them on track, not going around in circles as they know to do. And I'm using the for ADR's specific format. Why? So why we made some decision and why we decided not to go with something else. So there will always be why we decided for this and why we neglected this, because there will be multiple options for each design decision that you need to make in your system. And this way, if you have this architectural decision, you can always reference agents back to them. So we decided this a month ago, 2 months ago. Go check ADRs, and it will ground them quite good and keep them on track. So we decided topology, blah blah blah. Okay, let's see. And this was fulfilling, because at the end it worked. And it not only that, because I did much more than he expected, because I first planned, designed, brainstormed with code before I decided what will be the architecture decision to implement at the end. So it's not only, okay, Claude, create me this, but you need to, do the dance with it. So, okay, again, there are some, things that should be fixed, but yeah, that's like a fulfilling moment when you see, let's see, this was also like, again, I fix one and another bug pops up. And at the end, yeah, okay, he didn't post it. I was looking for his, because now having open source projects and other people using it and pinging you about what they would like to see and the bugs that they are experiencing, really moves the project much faster. Because I'm now starting to lack ideas. So, and I reach 2K downloads a weekly, so doing good compared to Rooflow with 100,000. I'm still a kid, but okay, we are going there. Okay, this one is still working. So yeah, maybe some more questions about whatever from those newcomers, because it's a lot to sink in. When you're first time here, I have a lot of stuff to show. Yeah.
All code generated by Claude?
Yes. Claude, but Claude is using specialized agents for those tasks, not vanilla Claude.
Single line.
I didn't write a single line of code in the last year and a half. And I was writing 20 years before that, different types of code, from bash scripts to Python to Java application, UI frameworks. Yeah. I don't know. I was playing with a lot of things, and then now I'm playing. And I watched yesterday before my meetup Paul Gerard. I don't know who follows. He's famous in testing and in I would say engineering. He just made a video again following Kent Beck and others, guys that are realizing that they will not write code anymore in their life. And he expressed that after 25 years of writing code, he finally has somebody that will write code better than him. He is not writing code anymore. He just, planning, designing, and letting agent code instead of him, because his, words, they are giving better code than I would be able after 20 years of, or plus experience of, doing engineering tasks.
And I use it only Claude, not GPT, not Gemini.
So I use sometimes Codex with the OpenAI APIs and Gemini for, let's say, additional checks. I even invoke Claude with those APIs because Claude can use using like either Claudish, like a wrapper on Claude that can allow you to run with different models. I'm not only as a tester, I like to experiment. So I'm using Claude most in my everyday work because it gives me best results. And the stack that I'm using is giving me the best results compared to all other tools. And the tool set available in the Claude is still leading compared to others. So Codex didn't have multi-agent orchestration until recently. Gemini still doesn't have that. So running subtasks is what gives power to my and Rooflow fleets, because each of the agents is running in its own context as a subtask. So it's not polluted with the context from the main thread, but it gets its own context in which it runs. And running agents in swarms on parallel, both Rooflow and my system give agents possibility to communicate as they are working on the tasks. So if multiple agents are working, they will communicate in the memory through the shared memory space. And I can even show in the agent definitions. So each of the agents definitions from the QE fleet has a certain, let's say, intended behavior Not this one. That one is not a good one. Let's check contract validator, for instance. So each of the agents, okay, definition using the markdown. So these are the best practices, keep the description, put the keywords in the description that should trigger that agent. What's the intended use? I have the domains. So my system is split in 13 the different quality engineering domains. So each of the agent is constrained again only by its own domain. And it uses certain memory namespaces when working on the task. So that's also in those patterns, in those tables in memory DB. So that's the persistent memory. But agents, as they're working, they have the in-memory patterns that they are, working really fast. Those are like microseconds that they are. And then each agent, have mandatory things. Look in the memory before doing anything. Look for similar patterns. Then when you are done with a task, go and store what you learned. What did you do? How did you do this task? If there are some breaking changes patterns, and submit a result to the queen, because the queen is orchestrating the agents. So she is doing the work of orchestrator in the fleet. Yeah.
Not you.
Not, yeah, queen. Happy wife, happy life. For those, I'm married for 30 something years, living with the same wife. So yeah. So, and then, different rewards. So my suggestion is check the definitions of agents, because I managed after a long while of testing the behavior to get to, certain configuration setup and, way how to define the agent. And it's not only agent definition. So AMD files give explanation to Claude as an orchestrator agent. So, in this case, Claude is the main orchestrator. So these instructions will give the explanation to Claude how it should use this agent, but the engine working below is the Agentic QE engine. So this AQE CLI calls to memory hooks, like in the Claude settings, I'm calling hooks for certain, this gives more deterministic way of my system working, because instructions in Claude MD, in agent definition and skill definitions will be adhered to only 70 to 80%. So like 25 to more than 20%, agents will ignore the instructions. Even, if you say important and, do not skip this or whatever, in more than 20% of cases, they will ignore this instruction. To prevent that, you use hooks. Hooks are deterministic. They will trigger every time, before tool use, and again, for different types of commands. Is it, like classical, I have duplicate. No, this is guard. So yeah, I have different, again, things happening. This hook is checking if the content that agent will read doesn't contain any prompt injection or some security issues or problems or PII data, for instance, to strip it out from the context, not to pull it at all, and to use it for reasoning or to send it to LLM. So that one will trigger before any tool use. Or there is a hook before edit, before command, before task, post edit, post command, post task, routing. When user is doing the prompt, based on the complexity of the task given, it will route to the different models. So simpler tasks will go to Haiku models. More medium complex tasks to Sonnet models. Highest complexity of tasks will go to Opus. And most of my agents right now default to Sonnet, and some call like an advisory, only use as an advisory model Opus. So in that way, when you're running Agentic QE fleet, they will spend less tokens than if you would run the same command using the vanilla Claude environment. Okay, let's see if the system managed to do something. Oh, when this happens to the terminal. It's still trying to run, building up in background, almost. Let's see what it's building. Okay, it started building. So I hope we will have until the end of this session again build, because the last time we also started building the app and it took like 45 minutes. But as I rebuild the Docker instance, let's see if it will manage now. Oh, I need to log in. Okay, I don't need to push anything right now, but yeah, I should log in probably to my GitHub because this is new environment. Okay, any more questions while we are still waiting for the, let me report. Oh no, it's still working. Let's see if it's stuck. So if you don't know if your agent is stuck, just ask it to report the progress. Now a shell stopped, so maybe it finished the build. Okay, done. Of course, it fixed the broken Docker in Docker. Okay, it was missing, reinstalled, patched. Okay, healthy. Yeah, we use here Redis database. I think it decided Redis database for cache and Postgres for persistent, like for, for storing the information more longer. Let me see what did it finished. Continuous running. Okay, now it's building the backend probably, and it's failing. Okay, let's leave it. While that one is working, any more questions? Especially those new ones. James?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think there's any advantage running the models locally or on cloud? Because particularly in my environment, we've got issues with security and governance.
So yeah, you can easily use, so Ollama provides support for running Ollama Claude. You can run Claude code using Ollama, either cloud version or local models. And one of the configuration in my fleet enables you to set also agents to use local models, Ollama server. So there is a configuration. Just ask Claude to find it and set it up. Because it's like a config to add to your dot environment or to your environment settings. And then when it reads from the environment, it will use that. Because I think, let me see, where is mine? So next to, like examples, you can run Claude with different models. For instance, Minimax provides plans for $50 a month. That should be the same amount of tokens available like Max Pro account, Max 200 Anthropic subscription. Then ZAI for GLM models. If you want, you can use that one. That was a good alternative up until 1 month ago. Why? Because a monthly subscription for ZAI was costing $30 up until a month ago, and I would like buy a 3-month subscription for $180. So I would get, for a price of 1 month, I would get like a full capability for 3 months, and now they increased their price to $180 a month. Because a lot of people started using their model as a fallback with this recent outages on the Anthropic APIs. I'm subscribed to their support system, and I'm constantly receiving new emails. Okay, problems with Claude Haiku model, problems with Claude Opus model, problem with logging in, and yeah. Let's see if this will now fix. Build for rebuild. Come on. We want to see application working in the next half an hour, presumably. Okay, while you are working on this, let's reanalyze the. So we did. Where is my last QA report? So not here. reports, this one. So copy. Okay, read and use. So I didn't analyze if these findings and these claims in these reports were true. So I will now use that special agent, meta agent that challenges other agent work called QE Devil's Advocate to analyze the output provided in those reports. So read master use to analyze QE reports, claims, and compare to current status of the project. So if you're not sure if your agents did a good job, I have like a set of agents and skills to help you check what the other agents did. So this one is specifically created, and I will show you now the definition of this agent. And I gave it a task to check the work of previous agents. So while this one is working on checking, I will find the definition. So here, and there. So what does this agent do? As I said earlier, it's a meta agent with the sole purpose of challenging other agents' output by finding gaps, questioning assumptions, and critiquing completeness. Adversarial review in my fleet. Yeah. Mission: challenge other agents' output to surface gaps, blind spots, and false positives. If you use, for instance, that brutal honesty skill, review skill that I also created in that set, it will invoke, in that brutal mode, it will invoke even devil's advocate agents for finding some gaps. And it will find a lot of times that agents, so how they are misbehaving mostly is they will finish the component, implement it, create unit tests for it, create integration tests with mocking other services, and they will report we are done. What will be missing? Integrating that component in the rest of the system. So the component is implemented, but it's not available to the rest of the system to be used and to add value to the end users. So what I'm doing when I'm checking the work of other agents is I'm constantly directing, okay, check what's implemented, but what's really integrated and verified from the user perspective. Because I don't care if you say you're finished, I need to see proof that you are finished. So let's see, this one is now trying to work. Oh, for those that don't know, now you can track what your agent is doing. You have this section. You can go with the arrow down. Now we are on the main thread, but we can go to see the thread of the agent. And here, now, for instance, I can show you how the initial prompt for this agent looks like. And this initial prompt was created by Claude as an orchestrating agent with the context from the Claude MD, from the hooks loading patterns related to the work in this project. And then it will give this instruction to the agent. So this is, let's say, prompt instruction invoking that specialized agent from the Claude to run. And then this agent will use certain tools, in this case, bash, mostly. Then it will read some files, use some additional tools, maybe go and do some online check, depending on, yeah, so let's leave it. Let's see if I can see how much tokens this one eats. I see only, no, this is the main thread. Let me see if I can see the token consumption for this one. No, this is still the main thread. Yeah, I need to check how to see the full token consumption. This is assumed tokens consumption since we started this. Wrap in dev mode. Okay, run. Okay. Come on, we want to see application working. Okay. Questions? Well, this one is doing analysis. I hope it will start the application finally. Services are healthy.
Is there anything there to actually track the token usage of each agent, or is it the overall process?
There are different plugins and tools you can use to track. I have one that's coming installed with this DevPod configuration. Let's check. So this is the usage, today. Estimated input, output, cache, how many times it hit cache since we started working, total tokens consumed, and what would be assumed cost if I would use the API calls. As I'm using subscription, my monthly is $200, so that's how much I'm paying. And let me show you. This is something that we see, I think, yesterday in the Belgrade. So let me show you consumption here. So this is my system. I was working today on deploying some fixes. So this is my consumption in the last week, or how much it would spend if I would be paying API calls in this project only. This is only one project that I'm running. So because each project has its own dev environment, then each project has its own API assumed consumption. So this would be, you see, I was resting on 17 and 16 I skipped. I was probably, that was a weekend last week. So yeah, I was not working, but this would be estimated spent if I would paying API calls. Okay, let's go back. And it's again fixing something. What are you fixing now? Let me just check if it's fixing wrong things. Docker file. It's again rebuilding the Docker file. It deleted the version of node.lp and y and just put it back here. Yeah, it's good to check sometimes. Okay. Add no cache Python. Okay. Install. Okay. Clean force. Okay. Copy application libraries. Okay. Set environment in wireless. Okay. So what's the problem? This was probably a problem. It was production mode before. Not development. Looks like this line was being a problem in the previous attempt. Okay, let's give it a minute. Shell is working. Let's check what it's working. You don't need 2 minutes. Okay, if it's pulling the latest image and rebuilding from the beginning, yeah, probably it will take a couple of minutes. Okay, escape does escape from here. Okay. Questions? And next time we will have running up immediately as we are now rebuilding. Unless my Claude, again, don't decide to delete all my Docker containers. As 10 days ago, I use Claude to optimize my laptop. And I gave it command, okay, go and clean my cache, look in memory, CPU and junk. I don't need to go and look for those files. No, yeah. that would be probably good to run with not skip permission mode. Because Docker was stopped. So there were no running containers, and it takes most of the space on the hard drive. So 250 gigabytes, like half of my hard drive is allocated to Docker images. So I can, use multiple Docker images for needs of multiple projects. But it's okay. Oh, containers are stopped. They are not being used. Let me delete them. Even though in the instructions, it explicitly said, don't touch Docker containers. But now it persisted that in a couple of memories, because I was really, yeah. So, but again, from time to time, it's a good thing to refresh the system, start again. Good thing is that, my system is keeping the memory saved. So even though the Claude history was lost, because when you're working in the DevPod, dev container environment, your local running history is being lost, like a Claude history and whatever temp files, node modules, build artifacts, whatever you're working in while you're working on the project. But files that are committed are being saved on your file system. And some of these files, like .agentic UI in this case, memory system saved like the patterns that agents were learning while working in the previous environment. So, or even if I didn't manage to save that, there is like an option, like an export, brain export, and I call it really like brain export and brain import, where you can export the patterns from one project and then import the same patterns into another project. In that way, kickstart your patterns. You don't need, if you're working on the Python projects or like Rust projects or TypeScript projects, you can teach your agents on a certain stack patterns and then use that patterns into another project with the same stack. Okay, will it finish today? What is still brewing? Okay, building the new one, 5 minutes. Done. Let's see. No. Come on again. Report progress. And rebuilding Docker files is a nightmare, especially as I didn't check the dependencies on this project. So when I'm doing proper, I need to check what agents. That's also a thing to be careful of. These models that you are using now are trained on the data from a couple of years ago. So when they start working on a project, they will use packages that were up to date 2 years ago. And those packages probably have newer versions. And, in one project, I was just updating this morning, one package Axiom, like from, no, White.js. So front-end application, White.js. It was built with 5.4 version or something like that. And the newest version is 8. So 3 major versions compared to that one. I tried to update, I couldn't. There was a couple of breaking changes from 7 to 8. So okay, I upgraded to version 7 to prevent some security issues and some CVEs, but I couldn't upgrade to the latest version without doing code changes to support the breaking changes. So yeah, you need to be careful, when you start working on the project to make sure that it uses the latest packages. And today, rebuild from scratch. Okay, purge broken. Okay, regenerated in progress. Building the new OS. Looks like it finished now. What is also like a neat trick to use, and I couldn't use it now. I wanted like loop. I think I used that loop last time at the end. So there is like a really neat command to use if you want to loop on some task. So if I have a feature to implement and I have all the specification and documentation and everything ready, I can give loop command, give it interval, like loop every 10 minutes, and then give it a prompt. Like implement this feature, integrate and verify from user perspective, report when done. and leave it. And depending on the complexity of the task or the feature that it needs to implement, it can run for a couple of iterations or it can run for a couple of days. I know that Ruben has loops that are running for 5 or 6 days doing implementation of some complex or and there are also possibilities you can schedule things. You can give it at a certain, it creates like a type of cron job. So it really does that. So for those that are, platform engineers or DevOps, it creates a cron job because this is like a local Linux instance. In the DevPod workspace is a Linux instance running on the Mac machine in this case. So it creates a cron job that will trigger it every loop, 5, 10 minutes, what's the period that you give it, and it will continue. But now it's again, it was missing bcrypt. We use ignore scripts. Okay, need to rebuild it, and again, and no, this is missing. Now I need to rebuild. Oh, and this is missing, and now I need to. But why didn't you find everything from the first time? Iterative development. Now we are looking at how when you're looking agents doing the iterative development, you're complaining about it. When we are doing that as a humans, we're very proud about our iterative development, right?
So, for example, this process can be used for experience and patterns. Yes.
Yeah. I will ask it now. Okay, save this to memory, because Claude now has its own memory system, and those are like also things that it is borrowing from the ideas developed both by Ruben Cohen and myself and other members from Agentics Foundation. We were noticing, after a month, 3 months, they will start, who saw that Claude deployed Dream like a capability in the last 2 weeks. So they released like a feature, dreaming inside the Claude. Let me show you when I implemented that. I think 4 months ago, I implemented Dream feature in my fleet. So for big companies, again, need time. They're slower. They have, slower process. They need, to catch up, but they see, what community is working, especially us that are doing open source projects, and those things that now when I see that Anthropic is implementing features that both Ruben, myself, and other guys from Foundation were implementing months ago, it just proves that we were doing things, proper way and thinking about where this is going, in which direction. Confirmation of things. Nice to see that. Okay, web is serving, waiting for an API rebuild. Okay, this will again. Let's see. Oh, let's check our Devos agent. What? 16 minutes and still working? Why? Let's check why it's working and on what it's working that much. Oh, it's going through each of those criticals found in the original report and validating the claims. Okay, it will take some time. There was 6 or 7 reports below that master report. So there was like this now, one agent now needs to go through work of 6 other agents. So maybe I should start a swarm of Q agents to do the analysis. Okay, I'm still also learning. So next time we will ask for a swarm of agents to do the analysis. So a lot of time waiting for agents to finish their job. While they're working something, you can work on other things. Reading, watching videos. Yeah, assembling the new device. I did soldering after 33 years. So after high school, I did my first soldering during the weekend, connecting a display to ESP32 device. So I'm, doing now a little IoT, tinkering with Raspberry Pi and ESP32 devices. And now I need to assemble a new cognitum brain, because that's the new project. I just received the kit of devices I need to assemble it. So maybe next meetup I will be able to bring even some of those hardware devices so we can see really how to run the local models outside of completely offline, outside of the internet, and be able.
P1000.
No, name is V0 Cognitum. We are not still, but yeah, Odyssey, we are past that year, a long time, especially that 2001. Okay, and the agents are slow today. What can I tell you? Yeah, we are mostly looking them struggling with fixing the Docker build. So you see, they're still not perfect. The industry is still not doomed completely, but the focus of the engineers working now definitely should switch from code or coding, writing code, into more engineering tasks. So planning, designing, thinking about the architecture of the solution, thinking about the edge cases, big picture, what is the problem that we are solving, and if the solution that we now can codify much faster is really solving the problem for our end users. And now experimenting is much cheaper. Testing, doing the 8-bit testing, canary releases, or whatever other approach you want to test your assumption about the impact that you want to create with your application are really available to everybody, but you need to train your skills more into planning and verification ends, because the middle ground is getting eaten by the agents. Yeah, it's again building the Docker, and it will again pull 5 to 6 minutes. Let's see if this one is any, So one more thing, we are now peak hour on the West Coast. And that's something also that I mentioned last time in the meetup. When you're using now Claude with the subscription, your calls will have less priority compared to API paid calls. So slower responses from the LLM when the reasoning is needed. One more reason to start moving more into local models for the things that can be offloaded to local models, because there are still things that local models cannot do good enough as the general models trained with a lot of money and resources, compared to if you're using small language model, medium language model, or even large language models, but that are open sourced. I'm starting my journey more into becoming more vendor independent. I will still use Claude Code CLI as a coding harness, because it provides a good enough coding harness orchestration framework that I can then use with, in this case, I'm not limited to anthropic models, even though I'm getting the best results with the anthropic models. Okay. Maybe we will see some results from just 2 prompts and 1 hour. So, I'm sorry, but at least you heard other stuff while we were waiting for agents to finish their work. Anything more? Any more questions I can, answer while we are waiting for this? James, you're here from UK. Take your time, Shoot.
Yeah, you mentioned about the different code stacks. So have you done any projects with C++? And how does it compare to other languages? Does it actually make any difference?
It shouldn't make any difference, especially C++, because there is a lot of available data about it. And if you take a look, if there is a lot of Stack Overflow solutions related to that, if there is online, tutorials, books available on the topic, and there are, C++ is there for a long time. I would say 40 years or something like that. Yeah. So I would assume there is a lot of general knowledge available on which models could be trained. What I'm seeing, for stacks, when we are talking about stacks, Rust is proving quite good for agentic work. Why? It needs to compile. So agents cannot lie that much compared to other programming languages that are not needed to compile before running, executing. So, TypeScript and, Python, you can just run them, Py5, run it. But Rust, you need to compile a binary before you being able to execute it. And it eats more space. So those libraries really eat fast space on your hard drive. So you need to have bigger hard drives when working with Rust projects. But in the end, you get more stable, more secure, and fast as hell, applications. Because Rust is really fast if you know to optimize it well. And I know that Ruven is managing, and even I manage in my agentic QA fleet, not in the QA fleet, in the Meguel system. That one was created using the Rust, that shared memory system that I also open sourced. I managed to get like a speeds of under milliseconds, so microseconds for some of the operations, and millions of operations in a second. So yeah, Rust is really powerful. Is it moving? All services running. Woohoo! API health. Woohoo! Looks like we will get the application started, maybe. Connecting to localhost. Okay, can't connect. Okay, because it was trying using just localhost. It needs to target the IP address. It's not being translated. It's running in local environment, and it needs to expose the ports so I can access. Oh, now, it's redirecting. Oh, looks like my 8 is used. That's why it cannot. It's trying to redirect to another port. But that's automatical proxy from Visual Studio Code and Docker environment. So let me see. Looks like it's working. API, web. Okay, let's see if the app is working. Why it's opening here? Oh, that's also a preview now. You get in Visual Studio Code. Okay. So it managed to start, but now, do we have some admin or test user account in seed data so we can log in to the app? If not, add both admin and test user with different roles to the system so we can test the app with different roles. Okay, I don't, because the Docker was rebuilt. I know that it didn't, because the Postgres database was previously on my machine, a local machine, and that was deleted. I know I deleted it. So it needs to seed the data again into database. So while it's seeding the data, this one is still not done. Oh my God, half an hour still checking things. It's hard work to check the work of other agents. Yes? Yeah, where?
Yeah.
Here? Okay.
And there, below the main.
Yes.
just do that as other thing.
Yeah.
Master report.
Yes.
Oh, so that's
That's the new interface UI for when the Claude starts the sub agents as the subtasks. You can look. So now we are looking at the main, but if I go and click, I can switch. Now I'm looking output of the QE Devil's Advocate here in the terminal. So that you are controlling. If you're running like a multiple agents, you can go and check the output of each of the agents separately. Well, I will leave it like that. Okay, this one is now seeding the data. While this one is seeding the data, okay, or I will leave it, but I will extend for 5 more minutes this live session that we are recording, and then bonus session starts for those that are coming in person. I want to motivate more people to come in person. Okay, searching, reading. So if you don't know how to see the data, you can always look at the commands. So Control O. You can check what the agency is working, where it is. But no, it just stated that. Oh, I wanted to see this bash, but it was already in this bash. So, and okay. Registering admin. Okay. Not something, not some key that I need to, rotate after this session. That's also like a thing when you are working live recording your sessions. Be careful. Okay, this is the access token. It created local admin user for this application on my machine. I'm running it locally in the Docker. Nobody else can access it except me. So, I'm good with this access token. And it is session based. So next time when I run Docker, it will be another access token to log in. I wanted to ask it to use the QE browser skill to log in and, do the full journey. But, let's see. Let's try to log in. I think Visual Studio Code deployed this option like in browser inside the preview inside let me see if I can open that local host. Which one? This one. If that one is being routed to my machine also locally. Aha, not found. So let me see port forwarding. Give me a second. 3000, it goes to 3000. So why it's not giving me that? Okay, we'll check that. But at least we can see the inside the Visual Studio Code. I need to check why the port is not being forwarded properly.
I think maybe it's a different port. Like 4, 5, no, go to port staff.
Okay. 412?
4, 5, 4.
No, but look on which one. This one is forwarded to this one. And now I'll go back here. It says again on this one and use what's the admin. Okay, here it is. So let's try to log in. Admin and password. No. Where is now? No, I cannot log in. Use QE browser and run headless browser to check from UI what it is not working, fix and proceed fixing problems for major user journeys in the app. loop 5 implement. No, sorry. Run UI check what not working. What is not working? Fix, verify, repeat until major journeys working. And now let's see. So now I'm using also the loop in combination with what I would like agents to do. Let's see what and how it will behave. I have my expectations, but expectations are one, and behavior is different, but it is checking if it has the Vibium, because I'm using Vibium as a runner. For those that don't know, Vibium is a new project by Jason Huggins, creator of Selenium. Vibium is agentic-friendly version of a framework for running UI test automation. While it's installing, why it's installing when I have it installed? Oh, no, I didn't did the AQ init on this. That's why. Yeah, it didn't install it, but okay, it will install it. It's a small fingerprint. It's like 30 megabytes compared to 200 or 300 megabytes of Playwright. So that's like a first, smaller fingerprint just for that. Then the MCP tool calls are more optimized compared again to Playwright. So it will spend less tokens when working on the same types of tasks. Okay, now, I will stop the recording and the sharing and say thank you. Okay, let me see. Stop sharing. Stop recording.